She has a better one shot, better range, better damage, no fall off, better mobility, better SMG option, better fucking everything, and these devs will not address it.
I am a little late to the topic, so forgive me, but Widow's been causing an absolute storm in top level play. You've got pro coaches like Wheats mentioning how ridiculous the one-shot rush meta we have currently is. So what's going on? Has Widowmaker historically been an issue? Why is she meta now? And does she need to get changed? As is usual with these types of videos, we have to start at the beginning. I will be very quick since there's already a 16-minute video going over Widow's history, but in short, Widow was very broken in 2016, saw some top level play in 2017 and 2018, then GOATs happened in 2019, then Double Shield happened in 2020, then a Bull Zen dive meta happened in 2021, and boom, 2022, we're already at Overwatch 2. However, another one-shot hero was introduced, Sojourn, who had incredible mobility, a more common, bigger hitbox one-shot, an ultimate that would just allow you to one-shot everyone, more consistent damage, and more fluid movements all around. As a result, Sojourn was meta pretty much throughout the entirety of the Overwatch League, and Widow's only involvement was on situational maps like Havana or Junkertown, where the sightlines were longer than the gap between Carti albums. Since Overwatch 2, she hasn't really seen that many changes historically, barring that Season 5 change, where content creators exaggerated her range nerf, which didn't really matter in the overwhelming majority of situations. But only now, in the first time in Overwatch 2's history, are we seeing top level teams play Widow on stereotypically non-Widow maps. Twisted Minds played Widowmaker into SSG on Blizzard World, and it almost won that map. Nightmare Rotation played Widow on Lijiang Night Market, and on Gibraltar against the best team in NA. And now, it's starting to trickle down to other teams in Europe, playing Widow on King's Row, Colosseo, Busan, you get the idea. Now, I don't want it to look like I'm cherry picking these examples. Teams do still play a diverse range of DPS on Flashpoint maps, on Control maps, and even on some of the maps that I just mentioned. But my point here is that this Widowmaker issue is a recent, current issue that we've just never seen before. If you look at Widow pick rates in Grandmaster this month, compare them to the last 6 months, you see an over 1.5% increase in pick rates. For reference, Widow is currently the 6th highest DPS in Grandmaster in terms of both pick rates and win rates. I want to bring this up to dispel the surface level analysis some people like Chipser and Wanted have made in the past. I'm sorry, but if you think an almost 70% increase in win rates has come from top players just magically getting better in the span of 6 months, you're tripping. And this is important to my thesis throughout the entire video, that Widowmaker isn't just magically or inherently broken, but instead that there's underlying factors that drive her spike in pick rates. The question ultimately is, what are those factors? Well, one of those factors is the Widow versus Sojourn debate. In other words, the death of Sojourn's one-shot has opened up space for characters that do have one-shots to thrive. Even with the increased health pools that Season 9 brought, it wasn't really a substantial threat to Sojourn's pick rate, as it would only require a few SMG shots to finish off a target, or you'd force out a cooldown like Lamp or Suzu. However, Sojourn would be changed forever in Season 11, with the devs finally shifting power away from her railgun back into her SMG. Sojourn could only deal 150 damage on headshots with a fully charged railgun. This basically left a gap in the market to find hit scans that could reliably one-shot, which is where we get into the Widow discussion. The second factor, which is a massive elephant in the room, is of course the shift to 5v5. If I'm being real, it's not groundbreaking analysis, but one-shots will of course be disproportionately more powerful when there's less players on the field. A 5v4 is gonna be easier to win compared to a 6v5. Not to mention, less players on the field also means there's less people to mark your angle. There's not always going to be a D.Va or a Sigma who's going to be sitting on top of you. However, this doesn't tell us the full story. It might explain why one-shots are good in 5v5, but it doesn't tell us anything about Widow specifically. In reality, the biggest cause to Widowmaker's rise is that up until now, she's never had better matchups into her counters. I recently had a chat with Tier 2 professional coach Cuffy about why Widow was so dominant, and the main point was that there's just no counterplay. The two options he gave to counter playing Widow was the contester from range, but as we've already talked about, Sojourn can't one-shot Widow, so you're just left with playing Widow into Widow. Not very useful. The second option was to close the gap, but DPS like Genji, Sombra and Tracer just can't. At least not in some certain contexts. Let's start off talking about Tracer and Genji and why they're not always reliable counters to Widow. I want to use the recent match between Twisted Minds and SSG to show where and why Tracer can work or not work as a counter to Widow. On Ilios Ruins, SSG played the Tracer to great success, and you can see how the Tracer marks and kills the Widow. However, on Junkertown, the Tracer didn't work. But why? Well, firstly, back to what Coffee said, it's too hard to close the distance. Junkertown is a much longer map than Ilios, and also significantly more open, meaning that during the time that Tracer has to get to the Widow can just get 3 kills on the enemy team. The same is also true for Genji, who is great at marking Widow when he's on the Widow, but he just hasn't got the mobility to close the gap in every situation. There's also the issue of Mei. In other words, if the enemy team plays Widowmaker and Mei, even if your Widow gets marked by a Tracer, the Mei can still hold your frontline intact, which was a point raised by Unter.
What do you think the goal of our comp right now is?
Waste the Widowmaker's time and win the front fight while Kev still plays Tracer.
What was the plan on the one against TM?
Perhaps the same, but you're versus Mei, so you can't do that. Because the Mei can just infinite stall you in the front fight.
Now into Widow versus Sombra. This was the solution SSG came up with, after figuring out that Tracer on Junkertown just wasn't that good compared to Sombra.
I think the Sombra does way more than the Tracer.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, 100% agree. Like, that was the biggest mistake, was I forced Tracer instead of Sombra.
The issue, of course, is that Sombra got reworked. Not having infinite invis and an all-around nerf kit made Sombra one of the worst heroes at the moment. And obviously, that's gonna help Widow. And lastly, we need to talk about Lucio and Kiriko. Reddit Lucio's been a term since that hero's inception, and he's great at marking Widow. He's got the verticality, the movement, the sustain, and his shots are pretty easy to land on Widow, at least when she's scoped in. For the exact same reasons, Kiriko is also great into Widow. However, Lucio Kiriko is almost never seen nowadays. Why is that? Well, as you might guess, Juno. Juno is hard meta at the moment, and if you play Lucio Kiriko over the meta Juno Brig just to counter the Widow, you're gonna be losing in every other field. Before I continue, just a quick coaching plug. Approved by Sparlow, yada yada yada. If you actually want to get better at the game, check the top link in the description. So, what do you actually do to counter Widow? Well, in Ranked, it's pretty simple. For tank players, you guys need to be playing Winston or Wrecking Ball. Ball especially is incredibly slept on. He's got very high mobility to mark the Widow, he's got high burst damage like a Kiriko or Genji, and has a ton of sustain to always be on top of a Widow. Winston, on the other hand, relies more on his bubble cycles to mark Widow, but just a tad bit of coordination during your bubble cycles, and you can fairly reliably kill a Widow, especially in chaotic ranked games. Doom and D.Va are also good options in a ranked environment, but do keep in mind that on Doomfist, you're sacrificing the ability to hold space, and on D.Va, you're a little inconsistent at marking Widow. For DPS, in most situations, Genji, Tracer and Sombra are still your go-tos. I'd even toss Reaper in there. That might sound weird, but Reaper has a legit terrifying aura, and that's not even me joking around. If you occupy a space or a room close to you where the Widow is playing, or you teleport straight to her after she pops grapple, she can't do shit about you. You can see that in the background clip here by Havoc, who is a rank 1 Reaper, and if you do want to see more Reaper analysis, check the video in the top right. For supports, especially in ranked environments, mobile, duelist heroes like Lucio, Kiriko or even Moira are your best options. They all have various forms of mobility, they can all dish out good damage against the Widow, and they either have escape cards like CP or Fade, or sustain tools like Heal Orb or Amp It Up. So does Widowmaker need a nerf? Does she need her one-shot and her identity as a hero removed? No, to put it bluntly. I think some of the ideas Samito gave about giving Widow a laser or slightly nerfing her mobility aren't terrible ideas. I mean, I think aesthetically, a laser's pretty fucking cool. But we need to tread carefully when we analyze why Widow isn't the best day ever. Because truth be told, as well as nerf the heroes Widow is good into, namely Juno, you're gonna see Widow's pick rate plummet, as players are given more autonomy to deal with the one-shots that aren't just mirror Widow foreheads. Anyways, that's it for the video. Shout out to Coffee for his inputs, his socials will be down below, and if this video helped to raise your IQ, be sure to share it with your friends to also raise theirs. Until next time.